Hey, how are you? So, welcome to this final session. This is the last one. There's the closing ceremony, yes, but technically, this is the last technical session, right? So, welcome to this Global Hack Week, Beginners Week, last session. so, hi everyone, says Donald Guitar. So glad to have you here. Let me talk you a little bit about what we are going to do and what to expect to this session. As I post on the Discord channel the message to invite you, plus let me quickly share the check-in link so you can get your points. Here it is. Yeah, here. Perfect. Yes, as I posted, I realized during the hackathons that some of the beginners lack of knowledge that they didn't know they lack of. The first of all, it's Git. You need to know Git. I will say that's one of the first things you need to learn when you enter the software developer world. The second one, it's command line. So there are many others. I just want to say that. But during this beginners week, I thought to myself, like, what can I do to help as much as I can the global hack, the mainly hacking community. I give a session about Python environments and what the computer needs to run to actually run on your computer. Um, Interpreter, the package management, things like that. But another thing that I find really important, it's again this the command line. So during this session, I am going to share to you one resource, just one that I think it's pure gold. Um, it's like a hacker rank, like I don't know which other one, lead code, a system like that that give you assessments to do with the command line, and then you complete them and you are like learning during the process, and the main purpose is for you to have that tool. It was a joke when I said on the Discord message the main intention it's for you to use less the mouse and more the keypad. um, that's not the intention. I mean, it's totally fine, don't get me wrong. I don't want to be one of these developers who says like, oh, you use too much the mouse, you're not developer good enough, or real developers don't do that. They do Beam and Emacs or things like that. um, what I want to say just with this, it's I think it's important to know how to use the command line, not only because it reflects a little more knowledge on the file system, the structure, and in general the that you know how your operating system works. But sometimes it's even required. Imagine trying to access a server. Imagine trying to access, well, yeah, mainly that servers. But it is important. I mean, um, I'm pretty sure there are other examples, but I cannot think of one of them right now. So let me start sharing my screen, and I will give you the page. So here we are. Let me add it to the stage. Perfect. linuxjourney.com. Here, again, you can not only find the command line tutorials we are going to check, but also things for getting started, textful, advanced textful, management, permission, process, packages, a lot of things. Devices, the file system, boot the system, kernels, init, logging, process utilization. Well, more complex, for example, DNS, network configuration, basics, routing, and some other resources. But in general, I think these page is pure gold. Right now, again, we're just getting started, checking the command line and everything. If you want to give full try to all the content that it's in here, I really, really recommend that. I think it's really worthy of your time. So we are going to be checking this command line, running some exercises. I'm going to give you some personal preferences. For example, when I set up my, one that it's empty here, that if you love your terminal, you're not just going to have a terminal. See the difference between these two. This is ugly, I get it, and it kind of has a color because I have the theme, which is a spaceship installed globally. But if you open yours, you will see these without a flavor, without nothing, and it will look awful, right? So give some love to your terminal. Treat it as if you love it, and you will start loving it. Add a theme, add some plugins, find some configurations that makes you feel more smooth, more fluent, and you will see. For example, I have this, which is Hyper, which is a JavaScript-based terminal that runs Bash at the core. Also has a layer which is all my CSH, which is the framework for for having many other things in your terminal, right? Like plugins, themes, etc. So we can take a look later. I mean, not later this session, but in other sessions on how you can configure it. But I mean, there's a lot of tutorials, right? So um, what I want right now is go deep inside the command line. So let's read the text and let's do the exercise, right? The shell. The world is your oyster. And or really the shell is your oyster. What is the shell? The shell it's basically a program that takes your commands from the keyboard that sends them to the operating system to perform. If you ever used UI, you probably seen programs such as the terminal or the consoles. These are just software that launch the shell for you. So again, um, mine there's a slight difference that I don't even understand. I have to completely admit that between the shell and the bash. So that's a question. Please don't ask me because I don't think I can answer to that yet. Probably I need some more studying. But the point here is that you can access the shell via your terminal, right, or your console. It's just that software. Um, in this course, sorry, we will use the shell program bash, born again, born again shell. Oh, that's mean that does that mean bash? Born again shell. Okay, well, you see. Um, I haven't noticed that almost all Linux distributions will default to the bash shell. Okay, there are other shells available such as KeySH, ZSH, TSH, but we won't get into those. Let's jump right in. Depending on the distribution, your shell prompt might change, but for the most part, shell you should adhere the following command. Um, and you will see something like this. Again, I tried, but I do have something installed like in global, so I don't see something like that. I, I do see like my pre-configurations, right? So not that notice that the dollar sign at the end of the prompt, well, different shells have different prompts. In our case, the dollar sign is the normal user using the bash, born or corn shell. You don't add the prompt symbol when you type the command. you just know that there it is. Let's start with a simple command, echo. Echo do what the name says. Just prints out the arguments that you for you to display to the display, right? So let's do this. The exercise is try some other Linux command and see what the output is. For example, date and who am I, right? Let's open the command that I just have here, and we will be switching between these two. So let's do this. Echo hello world. You can copy and paste it or directly write it here. And you see the command, it's echo, the argument, it's hello world, and we see the output of hello world. The exercise is to try some other commands to see the output. There is the command date, for example. Today it's Wednesday, August 13. For me, it's 9:14, almost 15 CST time. What time is it for you? I'm pretty sure you don't need to run these comments, and you probably will like wondering, okay, this is silly. Why does this even exist? Why should I get the date on the console or the terminal? Why should I just echo something? Or why should I just ask things like, who am I? And you are Alberto Camarena, right? Okay, my configurations already is showing me my user, my profile here, but yours probably says something more like this, and route or something like that, right? So this can be useful. Again, even more on servers or computers that are not yours or that doesn't have a pre-configuration as mine. But with the time, you will realize the impactfulness of every of these comments, even the most single one that you can think of. For example, the echo. The echo is actually really, really common and used. Um, for example, another one I want to share with you is man. Man shows you the complete manual of bash or or of your terminal in your terminal. So these things has a lot of things. If the user has sent a man map, usage, deco, string, find. Well, this is too long, right? And too kind of complicated. Um, you can use man, for example, followed by the command you want to know more. For example, man echo. Now, the name it's echo. It's great arguments to the standard output. The echo receives a number of strings as the argument. The description says echo utility rights and specified operand separated by the single blank character and followed by a new line character to the standard output. The following option is available, which is -n. Do not print the trailing new line character. This may also be achieved by appending /c to the end of the string. Um, so let's try that, right? Let's try quitting this. Just also, if you run this and you don't know or not sure how to return to your terminal or the control to your terminal, just hit Q and you will exit. That's it. Else, kill the terminal and open it again. Don't worry, you will learn how to do that later. Clear, it's a great command that clears your terminal, right? Which other ones? PWD to know where you are stepped in. For example, I'm under users and my current user, and this is reflected with this sign. So the abbreviation of all of this is just this one. Um, quickly, we will take a look to this in later session, right? But I am going to move to previous. I'm now under users, and I am now in the root. This is the root. Also, I can say cd, and the symbol I just show you before, which is this one, and this is the home for my operating system, which now I am again in users and Alberto Camarena, right? So if I just cd to this directly, this is the root, all of the root. I cannot go anywhere um, above that. I cannot go anything more than this. This is the base folder for my computer. So if I inspect what's in here, which is done by using ls, I will see there are application, library, the system, the users, binary files, volumes, core, depths, etc., opt, shrink. And there are many of these that actually are useful. Um, More than users, of course, but you will discover what's in that in probably more minutes, right? So again, let me clear, let me cd to um, the home. You see, for example, I have a lot of shortcuts, and if you watch many of my other streams, you're probably wondering like, okay, how did Alberto did that if, for example, he did not explicitly set cd to your home, you just cd at all. Well, if I do not pass any argument to the cd, which is move directory, I just directly go to home. Same as, for example, if you see I have a list and I have an ugly output of the list, there are things like list minus all, for example, which includes all hidden folders or directories. You have anything, something other, like, for example, let's inspect the full man ls, right? You have things like minus a, which include directories entering whose names being with a dot, which are hidden. B for printing the not printable characters. Add display the extent attribute. F displayed a slash. G enable colorized output. H symbolic links to the command lines are followed. E prevent A from being automatically set up for super user. L follow a symbolic link. O outputs the file flag for a long output. P argument the symbolic link, recursively links subdirectories encoder. Um, what others? Colors, H, L. Well. Uh, then again, if you're here on man, you can hit Q and you exit, right? We will explore more of this. I just wanted to give you a nice taste of what we are going to cover, right? And why this is important. So let me see if you have any question. I have always been confused about Linux. What computers run Linux? The question, it's great, and the answer is every computer can run Linux if there is a Linux distribution for that. For example, previously, not so many years ago, you could find the x86 architecture, which is like the base architectures for all computers, well, or modern computers. And you can run many distributions of Linux of that. Remember, Linux it's a family of distributions that are from Unix software. So Unix can be the base. Linux just tells like there's this family of distributions, sorry, of operating systems that are like that comes from that specific software. The difference, for example, from Windows, it's that Windows comes from the OS, MS-DOS or something like that. So it's a different software, and they manage the things differently. And why then it's important to learn Linux and not Windows? Well, well, the importance of the Linux is that you can think, okay, commercially, a lot of computers, I mean, most of the computers that are sold have Windows. Yeah, the laptops, maybe some other. Let me just make this myself bigger so I can talk directly to you. Yeah, the laptops, some towers, home computers, right? They all have Windows. And there are a lot of things that Windows have that Linux don't. For example, gaming. You cannot be gamer in Linux. But being on the side of Windows, it's being on the side of the consumers. And don't get me wrong. I mean, like, of course, there are no gaming for Linux because all the people that it's doing the games, it's actually doing Linux. So we're like focusing for creating things for Windows. Like, for example, if you want to take it to web browsers, I have my web browser, which is Vivaldi, and I think it's great and has a lot of developer tools. But I have to build things for Chrome to work on, right? So I need to have Chrome, so I need to check everything works on Chrome because at the end, a lot of the users are going to have Chrome installed, not Vivaldi, not Firefox, not Brave, or not others. The most commonly one it's Chrome. I mean, of course, a good recommendation is to have something that works perfectly in all platforms. Same, for example, a lot of products just says like available on Windows. Lots of others have available on Linux, Mac, and Windows, right? So that's great. Um, Now, for example, I just got a lot of distractions, but now there are another common architecture. I mean, this existed a long time ago, which is ARM, but we used only to see these architectures in things like a Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi, it's the first commercial computer I knew that had ARM, right? So there were specific Linux distribution that you could install on ARM. When I first started learning Linux, it was on ARM because I could not afford having two computers, of course, and I could not. Well, I didn't know in that time that I could split the memory in my computer and have like this partition. Of course, I didn't know that, so I bought a Raspberry Pi and I installed Linux. I installed Raspbian. I tried because I was like, okay, there's a Windows distribution or Windows operating system that can work on Raspberry Pi, which was named at the moment Windows IoT or something like that. It was awful. I tried it. It was not what I expected. Um, at least I haven't tried it now, but it was awful at the moment. For example, that's another reason why when the Surface on Windows came out, it did have a Windows version which was 8.1, but that version was not compatible with a lot of other Windows products, right? So that happened to me. I bought a Windows Surface and I realized that I could not install, for example, Autodesk, which at the moment I required a lot. I could not install a lot of the programs that were necessary to me. And I just hate that thing because there was not compatibility. They do worked for Windows, but they worked for a different architecture. At the moment, the Surface, I am not sure. I think they work on ARM, but the point is that the operating system was different, and the programs that I needed didn't work on that operating system. Even they were called Windows between quotes. It was a different version that the currently all available Windows. So great question. Thank you so much for asking that. Don't get confused. Again, Linux is just a family of operating systems that comes from a common ancestor. Same as, for example, Mac. Some people joke about it and says like Mac is just another Linux distribution that you pay for it. Um, there are other Linux distributions that you need to pay for. For example, Red Hat. Red Hat has uh, great support, and you can pay for Red Hat. I have tried Fedora, for example. I have tried Debian. I have tried Ubuntu. I have tried only those. And now I want to try two, which are Mint and Kali, um, because I heard interesting things of Kali and Mint, but I haven't enough time. The point is, once you learn one Linux, you almost already learned everything. There are specifics about each distribution, um, but the base is the same. And here on Mac it's the same. The only thing that changes, and probably, for example, if you're on a Windows computer, some of these commands are not going to are not going to work. I have some of them like in my mind, which I am going to share with you. Um, but for example, if you see me typing something on my terminal and it works and in yours don't, probably it's because you are on PowerShell. If you work in Windows and you are planning to learn software, one of the best recommendations, and this is now supported by Windows, it's to install Windows Subsystem for Linux. So it's like you be running a Linux system inside your Windows. I don't know technically how that works, but I know it works good enough. You know, um, another reason why I got that much into Linux, and this was with the federal distribution I was mentioning. It's because at some point I used to have another computer, my personal computer. Actually, this one's from work. But my personal computer that I used to have when I was a student was a Toshiba Satellite, one of the latest laptops Toshiba ever built, and that lasted to me a long 7 or 8 years. And in the last years, it was a brick. It didn't work like at any time. I was getting freeze. My system was rebooting all the time, and I was really annoyed. I really was annoyed because I realized it was not the hardware on my computer. It was Windows. Again, I don't want to be a hater, but there is a reason why developers do prefer Linux distributions. I heard, and I know even some of the developers that defend Windows. Um, but hey, leave it in the comments. We can discuss that later. The point is that I installed Fedora to my computer at the time. I completely erased Windows, and I give it a second life. It lasted me at least another 2 years, and it was great. It was working perfectly. And actually, I stopped using that not because it didn't work, but because I could afford now to buy a new computer. And I give the same recommendation to a friend, and now he's into Linux, and I am so glad about that because his computer was like the same, dying slowly with Windows. He erased everything, installed. I don't know which distribution he installed, but I'm sure later I can ask. Well, the thing is that he gave a second life to his computer thanks to Linux. And well, the other great news for Linux users is that all servers, almost all the servers use Linux, not Windows, not even Mac. I know there exist servers with Windows and Mac, but they are like for really, really edge cases, you really don't want to use one of them. You basically will use in your work life 99% of the time Linux servers, right? Okay, the classic cue, yeah, to quit. I cannot get the man prompt to work for me in the command prompt. Okay, the problem might be then you're the same the thing I was mentioning. You're in PowerShell. I'm not sure if there's something similar, but we can ask to Copilot. Well, to Gemini, is there a man or similar in PowerShell? Provides get help that it's equivalent to man. So Google get help, which G capital dash H capital. To try man and the package like man git. Uh, this is the error message I am getting. Man is not recognized an internal or external. Mhm. Are you on Windows? I think PowerShell. Yes, that's the thing. So Linux is like Windows or iOS, not just an OS, but also an architecture. No, um, both three, Windows, iOS, or Mac, or well, Mac OS, Linux are not architectures, are operating systems. The architecture, for example, right now, the ones that have the Macs, it's ARM, because the previous architecture required the chip, the GPU, the things, like the basic computing. You have the motherboard, your CPU in that, you have RAM that you can access through some ports. Um, their current architectures in Mac OS, in Apple, with the Apple Silicon and everything, you have all of that in just one chip, um, which is really similar to what was happening in the cell phones, and that's called system on a chip. Um, but that's another great question. I don't know exactly the difference between ARM and system on a chip. Um, but sometimes the people of ARM, it's here at the Mayoli Hacking as guests, so you can ask them later if you see them on stream, right? Thank you for explaining. I should definitely learn Linux. Lol. Yeah, you should, and not because I'm just here like being a Linux fan. I mean, I do like Linux. I do enjoy it, but you can say like, then why you use Mac? There are some things about Linux that just are complicated. For example, to me happened. I mean, yeah, I had not my free screen. I had not my system rebooting, and that during my period with Linux as my main computer. But I do have the problem about sometimes, from time to time, I had to install new drivers, and I lost my the one more annoying was the sound driver, the Bluetooth driver, the Wi-Fi driver. Sometimes my computer didn't connect to Wi-Fi for no reason. Just like 1 minute it was connected, the other minute it was unconnected, and I needed to reinstall the drivers. Um, Again, just for commodity, I am doing Mac, like my base one, but I am building another computer now that I work and I have the possibilities. And that computer, I am going to have a partition, one with Windows, because I do want to play. I mean, that's the whole point of having a big and powerful computer. And the other one with the other partition, it's going to have Linux, probably Kali. Yeah, probably Kali. Um, But yeah, you do need to learn Linux. Get help. Yeah, thank you so much for looking for this, Donald Keeter. Thank you. I have an Asus VivoBook with the screen extender, and I love it. Great. I only use Windows and DOS with computers and laptop. Okay, PowerShell, the man prompt works. Okay, cool. Well, again, same recommendation. If you're on Windows, that doesn't mean you don't need to learn Linux because you probably are going to use that in another time in servers. And plus, it's a great recommendation to have Windows subsystem for Linux in your Windows, right? And let's continue. I want a Mac, but I am worried that the learning curve will take a little bit to get used to. But it depends. It depends a lot. For example, again, as a personal anecdote, when I was younger, I asked my father for a Mac. I was like, Dad, I want a Mac, and he was like, Why? You don't even know how to use it. And I was like, okay. At the moment, I didn't understand that. I didn't receive a Mac when I was younger, and I was kind of okay, annoyed. Yeah, that a silly idea I got as a kid. But at the moment, I do agree with my dad. Like, of course, he was completely right. I get to learn Linux. Then a lot of time after I learned Linux, I got my first Mac. And I was like, this is great. This is like Linux working perfectly without having to install a lot of drivers, without having to me doing all the manual stuff, like without having to me doing the hard work. Uh, that's the one of the great things about Mac. It's that it comes plug and play. Like you can take it out of the box and you're ready to go. You don't need to do anything else. Of course, there are things I am critic about Mac in general, not only software, hardware, a lot of things. But yes, the thing it's you will have a learning curve, but don't worry, that's not that complicated, and it's less complicated if you already know Linux. So let's continue with our Linux journey. Thank you so much also for all your great questions. What should be output to the display when you type echo hello world? Well, directly hello world. Correct. Let's continue. Let's learn about print working directory. I already use this, but for you to have more information about it. Everything in Linux is a file. As you journey deeper into the Linux, you will understand this. But for now, just keep in mind that every file is organized with a hierarchical directory tree. The first directory in the file system is aptly, named the root directory. The root directory has many folders and files which you can store more folders and files, etc. Here it's an example of how the directory tree looks like. You saw this is the root I was mentioning. Then we have binary, etc. Home bar, and the home one it's the sign that I show. I don't know what's the name for that. I think that doesn't even exist in English. Um, so that's weird. Uh, but yeah, that it's what in Spanish we have on top of the N, and that's another complete new letter. The allocation of these files and directories are referred to as paths. If you have a folder named a home with a folder inside it named Pete and another folder in called movies, that path will look like this slash home because this is in the root. Root has home, home has Pete, and Pete has movie. Pretty simple, right? Because even if you come from Windows, this is really similar to how it works. Navigation of these system files, much like real life, it's helpful if you know where you are step every time, right? To see where you are, you can use the print working directory command, pwd. This command means print working directory, and it just shows you which directory you are now in. Again, this is not commonly used, at least by me, because, for example, if I start moving, I I see here at the top of my command line where I am every time and who am I. So I almost every time have this information available, but that's because I already have this configured. If you don't have yourselves configured, or even so, if you are, for example, working with a remote server, well, you won't have this. So that's why you need to learn why this is important, and how you can do it. Print the working directory, cd to the root, for example. Print working directory again. I am on the root. Who am I? I am Alberto Camarena. That's perfect, right? So, any questions this far? Okay, you don't. Perfect. Let's continue. Um, okay. Exercise, no exercise for this lesson. How do I find what directory you are currently in? Well, with the pwd command. Correct. Let's move. Cd, or change directory, if you were wondering why we do cd. Because can mean copy, right? But no, it's change directory. Now that you are where you are, let's see if we can move around the file system a little bit. Remember, we will need to navigate our way using paths. There are two different ways to specify a path, with an absolute path or a relative path. The absolute path, this is the path from the root directory. The root directory, it's head honcho. The relative path, it's the path from where you currently are in the file system. And now this is where things like the dot start making sense, right? Because if I change directory to dot, dot means this exactly directory. So I change directory to the exact same directory. It does not make sense. If I do double dot, this means the past directory. So let's move first to, for example, I want to show you here where I am currently. I have developer documents, downloads, many other files that I use. But let's move to downloads, for example. And if I clear, I am step in downloads, right? The absolute path is that I am the root user, the user Alberto Camarena, and downloads. If I want to go a step back to Alberto Camarena, which is the home, I could do two things. I could do cd user Alberto Camarena, and I'm going to be here. I'm going to, or I can do cd double dot, which is the relative path that says I want to go a step back, right? And I'm again in the same directory. For PowerShell, if you haven't installed Windows 3.16 for Linux, the command is dir, if I remember well. There's no change directory, but just dir. Yeah, dir as that. Any question? Okay, no, perfect. So now I changed my directory location to home bit pictures. Now from this directory, I have a folder inside called Hawaii. I can navigate to that folder with cd Hawaii. And this is going to be inside now home bit pictures Hawaii. Notice how I just used the name of the folder because I was already in home bit and pictures. So this is the relative path. and this was the absolute path. I can get pretty trained navigating with absolute and relative paths at all time. Luckily, there are some shortcuts to help you. Again, the dot, it's the current directory. Double dot, it's the parent directory or the directory you were before. This is the directory you're currently in, takes you to the directory above you in the current tree. Home, which is designed, I don't know how it's called. The directory defaults to your home directory, such as home pit. For me, it's users Alberto Camarena. And minus, it's the previous directory. This will tell you at all previous directory that you were at. So you may be wondering, is there a difference between using double dot and minus? Of course it is, and I will explain you with an example. I am going to move to a folder where I stored currently the projects I worked on for the Global Hack Week, which is inside the root, users, Alberto Camarena, developer, Global Hack Week again, beginners, and that's it. So I'm using the relative path, and I am skipping from the home, which can be this specifically, to this specific path. And now I am here, pwd, and this is the same that I use. That's okay? You're okay with that? Now, the previous point which I was home, was user Alberto Camarena. Now, for example, if I want to go to CD a step back, a step ahead in the current tree, this will move me to developer global hack week. You see, developer global hack week. If I want to run this again, I am going to be a developer. If I want to run this again, I am going to be at home. Now, here again, I am in home. Let's move once again to this specific folder. And now let's move to same. Well, let's do this with relative paths. One ahead, one other ahead. Now I was in Global Hack Week beginners. Now I am in Global Hack Week. I am developer. Now I am in Alberto Camarena. And now here I am going to move to downloads. And inside downloads, you can see I moved from this route, which was developer global hack week, global hack week beginners, to downloads. If I do cd to the parent, I am going to be in the base, in the home, right? But if I do cd to the previous point I was at, now I am once again in developer global hack week beginners. So yes, there is a difference, a huge difference between going to the previous directory you were and the parent directory that you are currently on, because you can make like these big steps. You can take, not it's not necessary for you to be moving, like for example, oh, I want to move to well, I moved now to home now, but I want to move to developers. Now inside developers I want to move to global hack week, and inside global hack week I want to move to global hack week beginners, or yeah, and inside here I want to move to Python amps, right? And you're now in Python amp, and if you pwd, this is the full path, and you move step by step, and that's fine. Sometimes you want to do that. Another thing you could do directly, it's directly cd developers global hack week beginners, Python, and just with that comment, just with one, you're in the same. If I want to return home, I can do the previous step, which I was. So hope that difference makes sense, and hope that at least this is the one that you'll be using more. I swear to you, it's like learning to walk. Once you've done it, you don't need to learn it again. You will remind it, and it's only a matter of practice. You will fail sometimes, but don't worry. Okay, no questions. So let's move. Let's continue. Huh. If you're in home pit pictures and you want to go to home pit, what's a good shortcut to use? You can use CD to the parent because you already are in pictures. You can go to pit, right? That's the shortcut. If the question was how you can get to that, you could do a lot of things. You can do the relative path, the absolute path. You can even, for example, suppose that that was your previous step on, and you can do CD minus. But in this case, they're talking about this shortcut. So the answer is CD to the parent directory. So let's continue. So now you know how to walk. You know how to move to change directory you are working on right now. The next thing that you need to do is list the directories you're on, right? Now that you know how to move around the system, how do we figure out what's available to use right now? It's like we're moving around in the dark. Well, we can use the wonderful ls command, which is to list directory contents. The ls command will list directories and files in the current directory by default. So if you just use ls with no other thing, you will see what's inside your current directory. Or it's the same, just hitting ls and the dot, right? Remember, that's the current directory. However, you can specify which path you want to list for all directories. So it's like having a telescope because you don't need to move to some other place just to list what's inside that. You can directly list from whatever point in the file system you are. Alerts, it's quite a useful tool. It also shows the detailed information about the files and the directories you're looking at, and also note that not all files directory will be visible. Remember, some of them are hidden, and for that we have the -a flag, which is stand for show all, right? And there is also one more flag that it's useful, which is L for showing long, which shows the detailed list of the files along the format. That shows you the access of the files or the folders, the group, the user, the date, and sizes, timestamps, things like that, right? And the directory or the folder name, or sorry, the file name. A common thing, a common a common use in this format, it's ls minus la, list all list list directories with list all and list long, right? And you probably see that I've done that before. Clear. Again, we are on home, remember? But if I want to know what's inside the folder I was just moving, I can do the movement to that, developer global Hagwig Python's M's, and I am here, and I can ls without any argument what's in here. I can ls without the argument saying, like, for example, I want the things in here, which is the same, right? So then why moving to this point? I can be at home with no problem and ls what's inside the users, Alberto Camarena, developer, global Hagwig beginners, Python apps, and it's the same. I'm seeing what it's inside this, with the difference that Now, after the command it's executed, I am still in the home. So first example, I moved to the to the file I wanted, to the folder directory, sorry, I wanted, and I list what's inside that. Then I move back, and now I'm listing without moving, just pointing to the folder I want to list. Now let's use the flags ls minus la. And this output should familiar, right? And I have it just as L because I am too lazy. Remember, developers are lazy people. So instead of having to write ls minus la, since this is a command that it's like moving like the day to day, like same as the cd. The problem is that I don't have a shortcut for cd. Well, if you think of just hitting cd without any specification to go home, then yes, I have it. But ls minus la, it's so commonly used that I just have l. It's my alias for that. You will discover later these things called alias. I have, for example, um, well, this is my big list of alias. Some of them come directly, but the point, the point that I want is that you will discover ways to make your life simpler, easier, and well, being being lazy. You are going to be so much lazy. So ls minus a shows you again all including hidden files, minus l just, sorry, ls just minus with the l show you the long format. Remember the permissions, the I cannot remember what was this. I think it's the size, I don't know, the user, the group, I think these ones, the size, the date, and the name, right? And if you combine them both, well, you have all this big output, right? So you learn what list directory is, that you don't need to move. You can specify the specific, well, the folder that you want to list, that you have flags. And as we check, well, you have two possibilities. You can use man, but you can also use ls and with the flag help every time. Oh no, I am lying to you terribly. Well, man ls, and here you have other options, right? And you already discovered that you can combine them. You just need, you don't need only to use one. You can have, for example, h a l, some things like that. For example, here, when used with the L option, the unit suffix, terabyte, blah, 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 are set. So let's do that. ls, lah, and we have now the Unix suffix, right? Um, mm, mm, let me see what was the difference. Okay, I don't know. Well, but you saw. Oh, okay, here. Of course. So this is without suffix, and this tells us kilobytes, just bytes, bytes, kilobytes, 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 bytes, 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 kilobytes, bytes. Right? So simple. Let's clear and continue with the explanation. Any questions this far? Okay, no, perfect. What command you will use to see the hidden files? ls minus a. Check. Correct. Let's continue. Touch. Let's learn how to make some files, right? You already know how to move. You already know how to list. Now let's learn how to create. And for that, it's very simple command. A very simple way to use the touch command allows you to create new empty files. And for example, I'm going to open my, I'm now going to move to developer global hack week and all the things I've been saying. And here I just have two folders, which is my first web by Python projects. I'm going to um, create here the file, which touch my super duper file. So touch my super duper file. If I inspect again, remember we know already how to do this with ls minus al. I'm going to use just a. Um, we see we have my first web Python amps. My format output allows me to see these two are folders, but this one it's a file. So what happens if we want to move to a file? That's an interesting question. Thanks for asking. My super duper, okay, my super duper file. Well, cd change directory is going to show you an error that says not directory, my super duper file. Okay, so don't worry, you won't break your computer. At least you cannot break your computer with these comments I just show you. The interesting thing, and we will discover that later, it's that with Linux you can totally break your computer if you are not caution, if you don't have caution. So again, this is not to scare you, but in this level we are fine. We cannot break the computer. I will make the warn you to you um, where you can start, or where you may be able, if you do something wrong, to break your computer. Again, don't I don't want to make you fear, or saying like, oh, I better don't learn that. No, no, the point is be cautious. And mainly when you're deleting, modifying files and folders, that's it. That's just it. Um, so let's continue. And boom, new file. Okay, perfect. Touch is also used to change timestamps on existing files and directories. Give it a try. Do an ls on l file and note its timestamp, then touch that file and it will update the timestamp. There are many other ways we to create files that involve other things like redaction and text editors, but we will get that in the text manipulation course, which is the other that we were talking about, right? How do you create a file called my file when you use touch my file? Perfect. So we continue. The file. In the previous lesson, we learned about touch. Let's go back for that a bit. Did you notice that the file didn't convert to standard naming like you probably seen in other operating systems? You normally expect a file called with extension. For example, banana.gpag, expected extension for a picture, right? In Linux, file names aren't required to represent the context on the file. So you can create a file called funny.gif that isn't actually a GIF, right? So to find out what kind of file is, you can actually use the command file to show you a description of the file contents. So for this, I am going to do in two scenarios. We can use the file, my super duper file, and this will tell us the file is empty. Now, file, the opposite of what we were doing, of my first web, it's going to tell us, okay, this is a directory. So this is like a type of, right? If we move to the home, to downloads, we will see we have some pictures, right? For example, this one, IC transparent. So let's do file IC transparent .png, and this will tell us this is a PNG image data with the resolution, information about the color, and some other information, right? Same, for example, for a PDF. This is a PDF document version 1.3, blah, blah, blah. So this is how we can find information of this. Why is it relevant? Well, remember, if we move back to where we were, I can touch file mock dot, I don't know, svg. And if I file this mock file, it will tell me it is empty because it does not require, it's not necessary to be an SVG. This is what this this lesson is trying to teach us, right? What command can you use to find the file type of a file? Then file. Cat. We're almost done navigating files. But first, let's learn how to read a file. Of course, you can open it in your fancy, I don't know, for example, it's a PDF. You can open it in your fancy PDF reader. If it is programming file, let's say a JavaScript file, of course, you can be fancy and open it in your text editor like Visual Studio Code or someone from IntelliJ, I don't know. But there are many other ways we can read a file. A simple command we use to read this is the cat, short for concatenate. It's not only displays the content, but it can combine multiple files as you show the output of all of them. For example, if we find a file called dog file and bird file, we can cat them all. We can concatenate them. And for this example, well, let me finish reading. It's not great for viewing large files, and it's only meant for short content. There are many other tools that we use to view large files, blah, blah, blah. We will discuss that. Okay. Here, L, I'm going to echo some content in the SVG to the file mock SVG, and I'm going to do the same echo hey, I'm in the super duper file what I just did, it's a topic ahead, so don't worry for actually writing in the document. What we want to do right now is reading, but for clear reasons, if we want to read something that's empty, we will have nothing. So I just write some random information in the files for us to read. So imagine that you do find something to read that already has a content. We are going just to say cat, for example, my super duper file. And my super duper file says, hey, I'm in the super duper file. Same with the mock file, or what was the name? File mock. SVG, it says some content in the SVG. Remember, this is concatenate, so we can read both my super duper file and the file mock. So if we concatenate them, some content in the SVG and the super duper file. And as the lesson says, be aware that this is not great for long files. For example, let's cat in the my Python script, for example. Python script. there is slides, there is slides dot markdown, and you see this is a huge file. Well, not that huge, but you probably don't want this on the output, right? So um, be aware of that. Clear. There are better output formats. And let's talk about some of this. What's a good way to see the contents of a file? Cat. Continue. If you are viewing text files large than a simple output, less is more. And that's how I always remember this command. Less is more. There is actually a command called more that does something similar. So this is ironic. The text is displayed in a in a paged manner. So very similar to what's happening to man. We can be uh, having that paged. Um, so you can navigate through the text file page by page. So go ahead and look at the content of a file with less. Once you're in the less command, you can actually use other command keywords to navigate the file. Use the following common keywords to navigate less. Q used to quit, page up, page down, navigate with the arrow keys. G move at the beginning of the text file. G in uppercase moves to the end of the text file. Slash search, you can search for a specific text inside the document, prefacing words that you want to work. And H, you need a little help about the usage of less. So let's use less, and let's actually do the same. Cat now instead of cat, let's use less, and you see I'm navigating through the file. If I am at the bottom and I hit G, I am on the top. If I am the top and I hit G with the uppercase, I am now at the bottom. Remember, Q, we quit, we open it again, we can search. And we're looking for, well, we have it here. What else? We can look for Alberto, for example. Oh, it's not, is it here? It should be here. Maybe because it needs to be uppercase. Yeah, it needed to be uppercase. So be cautious is bad. I mean, you can search for things, but it's not like robust search. Python, for example, it is here and here and here, and we can inspect where all of these Python exist, the word, blah, blah, blah. So we quit now, and there's no problem. So remember, less is more. How do you quit out of less common? Q. Check answer and continue. History. In your shell, there is a history of the commands that you previously entered. You can actually look through these commands. This is quite useful when you want to find and run a command used previously without actually typing it again. You probably heard you probably already noticed that I am kind of doing this. Give me a second, I need to drink some water. But the way that I do it, it's as follows. Want to run the same commands that you did before, just hit the up arrow. So let's check the history. These are all the previous commands that I've run, and you will see the past was history, then it's less, then it's clear, then win a T because I messed up, then cat file mux, then cat my super duper file, then clear again, then echo, then L, and that's the list. We are just saying it. Of course, another history shortcut, it's Control R. That will depend on your software. And if I'm, for example, here on Hyper, I don't think that will work. This is the reverse search command. If you hit Control R and you start typing parts of the command, you will show the matches. You can just navigate through them by hitting the Control R key again. Once you found the command you want to use the Enter the Enter key. Our terminal is getting a little clutter, isn't it? Let's do a cleanup. You use the clear command. I already mentioned this. I already show you how to use it. That's great. There, that looks better, doesn't it? While we are talking about the useful things, one of the most useful features in any command line environment is tab completion. If you start typing and the beginning of the command file directory blah blah and hit tab, you will see it will autocomplete based on what it finds in the directory for your searching, as long as you don't have any other files that starts with those letters. For example, if you're trying to run command Chrome and you can type CHR and press tab, it will autocomplete. I already made use of this. I don't know if you realize, but for example, if I hit L and I just hit the tab, you will see that I am listing all things that I have in this uh, directory. So it's like if I was doing L directly here. This is, of course, not powerful enough if I have, or if I found a really, really huge folder or containing a lot of things. Like, for example, let's move to my first one. And then let's move to Dactina, and let's move to Dactina again. Oh, Dactina, and let's move to node models. Here, no, it doesn't matter how many hits I hit tab. You see, do you wish to see all 284 possibilities? If I hit yes, this is the suggestion. It's just the suggestion. It's not actually the comment. So that's the autocompleting. It's magic and it's powerful depending on the tool you're using. Probably if you're on base bash, won't be like this. I'm again using Zeta SH with Hyper and more things that make them more powerful. But it's a great thing to know, right? And I didn't run any comment. Actually, I Control C, which cancel my last comment. I didn't run anything. Just these were fully auto suggestion. Clear. So what's the command to clear the terminal? Clear. Great. Continue. Copy. Let's start making some copies of these files, much like copy and pasting files in order to operating system. The shell gives an even simpler way to do that. CP, which is the copy command, the file you want to copy, and the directory you want to copy on that. My cool file is the file you want to copy, and the home pit documents cool docs is where you are copying the file to, right? You can copy multiple files and directories, as well as use wildcards. For example, you can say copy all images, all files that have this extension into home pit pictures, right? The wildcard, the wildcard of wildcards, you use this to represent all single characters. The question mark is used to represent only one character, and the square brackets are used to represent any character within the brackets. For example, let's do an example of this. So I am going to show you in advance one other file really similar to Touch, but if you were wondering, can I make a folder or a file directory with touch, the answer is no. You need to mk directory, make directory, and I'm going to name these CLI or command line 101. Now, if I inspect, I have my command line 101, and I want to move these files there, right? Um, Sorry, I want to copy these files there. So CP, I want to say everything that has a SVG file goes into command line. So if I inspect, I have the file mock here, yes, but if I move, or sorry, I inspect what's inside command line, I will see I also have a file mock here. Another thing we can do is copy, and for example, anything that has the name super duper inside the command line. No matches found, so remember, needs to be super duper and then everything. Okay, I see. My super duper. So again, for the curly brackets, sorry, the square brackets should be everything that or anything match that it's inside the brackets, but we were missing something else. Uh, for example, my first web was matched with this, but it's a directory, so it wasn't copied, and same as Python for a reason. So I think I messed up actually with this instruction. But let's inspect again the command line to see what's in here, the file mock and my super duper file. If we want to check what's inside all of those, so cat command line file mock command line and my super duper, and they have the same content, you see. So even if we open them with less, which doesn't have any sense because it's a really small file, some content in SVG, yeah, we can quit this, and that will be fine. What else? What else? Well, I think it is great. It's also worth mentioning you have anything like the minus R flag and minus IE that actually you saw that the one of the errors was my first web is a directory, so this is not copy. If you do want to copy a full directory, you need to pass this minus R argument, which means recursive. So try to copy a directory that contains a couple of files to your directory. Didn't work. That's because you will need to copy the files over directory inside well with the minus R command, again, which is for recursive. One thing to note, if you copy a file over a directory that has the same file name, the file will be overwritten with whatever you're copying over. This is no bueno. If you have a file that you don't want to get accidentally overwritten, you can use the minus E flag of interactive to be prompt about that type of things. For example, if you drag and drop in your Finder or file system in the GUI, you probably see this interactive. It said something like, hey, we found this match. These files are called the same. What do you want to do? Preserve the current one, replace the current one, or cancel the operation or something like that. Well, this same happens here. And this is one of the things that, okay, you cannot bring the computer yet, but you can really messed up. You're already talking about not only reading, not only moving, but actually writing in the computer. So um, sometimes you can make things that you don't want, and that's you again. You need to be cautious. This is nothing to be like alarm or saying like, oh, I better don't. Just be aware of what you're doing, and the best thing you can do is actually know what you're doing. So just don't run comments just for running them, and that's it, right? What flag do you need to specify to copy over a directory? Minus R of recursive, that's correct, and we can continue. Move, it's the same and works the same, right? Use moving files, also renaming them, and that's the only. For example, if I want to move, I will do the same, uh, but first I am going to rename. So we rename the same way. Instead of specifying a directory, a folder, we specify a new name. So here I'm going to rename my super duper file to my super duper file dot txt. And if I inspect, this was renamed. And now I am going to move my super duper file txt to the command line interface. If I inspect, you will see this was not overwritten because one it's called .txt and the other doesn't even have an extension. Um, if we inspect file command line and my superduper file .txt, we'll see this is ASIC text, same as the one that does not have the extension. They both are equally the same, but since they are not called the same, well, there's no problem. So you already know how to move and rename. That's great. You can rename directories as well. That's no problem. Like CP, if you move a file to a directory, it will be algorithm in anything. It's in the same, so be aware of that. You can add the minus interactive flag for that. And let's say you didn't want to move a file to overwrite the previous one, you can also make a backup of that file, and it will just rename the old versions of that with that sign. I don't know how it's called. Again, minus B for doing that. So that's great. Uh, how do you rename a file called cat to dog? MB cat dog. And let's check that it's correct. So we can continue. We're going fast, aren't we? So make directory. We are going to need some directories as well. So to creating these directories, there's the command mkdir make directory. The making dir command, it's useful for that. It will create directory if it doesn't exist already, and you can even make multiple directories at the same time. You can also create subdirectories at the same time with the minus b. So for example, if I want to do something like mkdir inside the command line, I want to add a directory called test dir. And now if I inspect the command line, I have the test dir. Now let's say inside the command line, I want to create test dir b2. And inside the test dir b2, I want to add like, I don't know, just pictures. This is an error because it tells us, hey, there is no test 0b2. But of course, there is no. I want to create it at the same time I want to create pictures. So then I add my parent flag and that create both. Oh, I need to add the, sorry, I need to add the flags sooner, and that's it. So now I can go to command line, cd command line. Inside there is the test directory v2, and inside the test directory v2 there is the pictures, right? And that's empty, but we already create these two directories, which is great. Great, isn't it? Okay, I see you have a question. Let me remove so I can talk to you directly. I have a question. When I have done projects in other workshops, they almost always used a virtual machine, and the BMB is listed at the end of the directory in the command prompt. But they show or explain how or why they run virtual machine. Um, I will need to be more in context because a virtual machine, what it does, it's like create another file directory or file structure of your computer inside your computer. And it's funny because, for example, you will have your file system at some point, and inside one of those directories, you will find another file system. Um, but it's isolated, and you have resources from the computer, but you do have to install another operating system. So there are reasons for doing virtual environments. Oh, okay, yeah, but you mean like virtual environments as in Python? I was thinking of virtual machines. Sorry. Uh, yeah, the reason of using the BMB file, it's not a file, it's directory, and the directory contains all the necessary information for making Python. Again, actually, I talked about this specifically in two streams I gave at the beginning of the Global Hack Week Beginners, which is understanding Python environments and why it is important we have the virtual environments. The main point and the whole idea between these it's having isolation, repeatability, and clear separation of what's you want to do in Python. For example, this virtual environment contains the binaries for the interpreter. So, for example, I have installed, actually, let me show you really quick. Here, if I go to the home and I list, you will see even, uh, no, even in the root, yeah, here I have the inside, it's opt, inside opt, it's homebrew, inside brew, it's Python. No, inside homebrew, I think it's opt again. No, sorry. Then it's manages. No, where it was. I just saw this. Package bar. I think it's bin. Inside bin. No, again. What it was? What it was? What it was? Library. No, leave. No. Okay. Come on. It is him. No, neither that. Um, oh, I'm lost. Sure. Okay, well, I cannot find this at the moment. The point is that I have a Python version installed globally, um, and that's living inside like my manager, which is my package manager, which is a homebrew. Homebrew install it, and it has access to our computer to the binaries to have access to the Python interpreter. It also has the resources for the for the packages. So every time I execute a Python in that in general environment, it looks for the packages, for example, matplotlib, I don't know, numpy inside the general. But let's say I want to do a specific project, I create a virtual environment. That virtual environment also contains a specific version of the Python interpreter. Um, so I can change between versions. You can set one specific for a project. You can set specific versions for the packages you want, and also you can install or you can download a specific Python packages, because I don't want to have like all packages installed globally. Very similar to what npm does with the node modules, for example. If that's something to you, I don't know how familiar you are with JavaScript. Um, but the thing is, again, it's isolation. It helps you change between versions really simple, and that's the main purpose of the virtual environments. uh, no, indeed, it's not a virtual machine. Virtual machine, it's something like I was saying, you do install another operating system. In this case, you're not installing another operating system. Your virtual environment just tells you that you have access to the interpreter and the packages in a different way, or in a different part that um, helps you isolate the environment. Now that I think of it, they were all Python projects. Yes. Yeah, this is very specific for Python, because other languages manage that differently. Again, for example, JavaScript does not create a virtual environment, or at least they don't call it a virtual environment. Actually, you can just call it an environment. It creates a node modules containing all the packages required for running the project. You do have your JavaScript interpreter installed globally, but it's more easy thanks to tools like N or Node Version Manager to change from version in general in JavaScript. Okay, thank you. I thought it was a virtual machine. No, it is not. At least not for the specific projects you're mentioning with PNB folder. I don't know, because I also it's common to install virtual machines. So, but I don't think that's the case for the example you're mentioning. JavaScript uses sandboxes, right? Well, I won't say as that there are sandboxes. Again, there's a folder that has the purpose of that. The thing is that you don't access the interpreter in the node models. You just have like the list containing the code for all your dependencies. But you have the node installed globally, and there is npm, which it's the package manager that helps you to manage all those things. There are others. For example, there were a time where npm was kind of slow, kind of having problems. People released Yarn. A lot of people were implementing Yarn. Then npm implemented the patches Yarn had, and so people returned to npm. But now there's another one called Bun. I am JavaScript developer in most of the time, but I haven't tried it because right now I don't have time to test new things. At least at work, in my private developments, I just haven't enough time. I don't know. But yeah, that's a great question. Thank you so much. Let's continue, because there's okay. At least I wanted to get to here to remove, and we're almost out of time. So let's continue to the remove. What command it's used to make a directory and make directory. Perfect. Let's continue. Remove. And this is the dangerous section. Be cautious. Now, I think we have too many files. Let's move some files. To remove some files, you can use the rm command. We are going to use it really quick. Cd Okay, let's move first to where we were on the beginners. Let's see that we have my file mock and things like that. And also, since I added the flag at the end, this was not considered as a flag, but as a directory. So first, let's move the um, sorry, let's delete the file mock, and it's deleted. Perfect. Now let's delete the minus p. Legal option minus p. Okay, that's a problem because yes, it's called that way. Um, that's a great question. Uh, uh, um, oh, I put myself into trouble here. Okay. Um, what I did, we cannot delete directly this minus p because the minus says like this should be a flag, so it's a legal option since RM doesn't have an option like that, so it throws an error. What I am saying it's where I am slash this file, sorry, this directory, delete it. And now the result is different. It's an error, but it is another error. And the error it's this is a directory. And something really similar happens, remember, when we wanted to move um, things or copy things to other places that we have to use a flag for being recursive. Well, the same happens here for deleting. You can just remove a directory by default. You will need to add the minus "r" flag to do that recursively. Remove all the files in any subsets that it may have. Also, you need to be aware of that. If you're removing a directory, you are indeed removing everything inside that directory. So that's why, again, cautious. Be cautious. Recursively, minus p, and now it does not exist perfectly. So we already remove a file, we already remove a directory. Also, fortunately, there are some safety measures to put into place so average Joe can just remove a bunch of important files. Written protected files will prompt you to confirmation before being deleted. If a directory is written protected, it also not be that easily removed. If you don't care about your life, you can just absolutely rebunch everything with minus F, which is the force option. Same, we have the interactive flag, and well, the other command that you can use to remove a directory, it's remove directory, like the make dir, well, the make directory. So how do you remove a file called my file, my file? Check answer, and that's correct. So this is another thing that's great and it is important, but as you can see, we still have a long time. Find, help, man, what is, alias, and exit, and we are running out of time. So I like to thank you so much for being here at this stream. I really hope you learned something. And even if I was not able to like fully complete the journey, don't worry. I leave you with a resource. Remember, it's linuxjourney.com. Well, here it is, linuxjourney.com. I not only encourage you to complete the bash one, well, the command line one, I really encourage you to complete all of the assessments there. It's great information for any software developer. You don't it doesn't matter if you do front end, if you do back end, if you do Python, if you do JavaScript, if you do I don't know C, if you do Java, if you do Dart, if you do whatever things you do, you are going to do that inside a computer, and that computer probably it's going to have If you want to publish that, of course, if you want to take it to the real world, it's going to have Linux in it. So learn Linux. That's my recommendation. Final questions. I was supposed to learn JavaScript if my model completed class, but instead we use Kotlin. To be fair, it makes sense. It do make a lot of sense. Um, and the other thing I would like to add to this, it's that it's easier to learn JavaScript on your own than Kotlin on your own. So it's a good thing you learn Kotlin at your computing mobile class. So kudos to your teacher or professor. I learned a lot in this workspace. Thank you so much for answering and explaining all my questions. Yeah, don't worry. Actually, that's delightful for me. I'm so glad you do feel like learning something. So this was the last stream for Global Hack Week beginners. I encourage you to stay tuned for tomorrow closing ceremony. I was just checking the time. It's going to be 12 hours ET time. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon at the next Global Hack Week. I think we don't have dates yet. Yeah, we do have like Global Hack Week MLH.io. I don't want to lie. It's going to be on data September 12th to 18th, of course. Remember, you can always check the information available for the Global Hack Week in this link, which is globalhackweek.mlh.io. Also, remember to share your feedback. Please come to this link, mlh.link/global hack week feedback, and let us know what you thought of the session. It's really important for us, of course, if we want to learn and improve ourselves. This helps a lot, right? So thank you so much. Thanks for joining, and I will see you really soon. Happy hacking.